The boys are back. Political consultant O'Brien Murray and J.C. Polanco, political expert and a professor at the University of Mount St. Vincent. The big news this week was Eric Adams deciding not to run as a Democrat, but still wanting to be a Democrat and run on the independent line. What's with that?
Genius move. You know, his days were numbered. We know he had no shot at the Democratic primary. In June, it would have been all over. Now he prolongs his opportunity to be in the press, to sit here with you, Marcia, to talk about his plans, and to see how New York City's doing. What if crime gets better? What if economic development gets better? It gives him that much longer to talk about it.
He said crime's already better.
I know. He'll give him all that opportunity to talk about.
It's the perception of the public honors mayoralty. That's what it comes down to now. You had 80 days between now and about 80 days between now and the Democratic primary, and you have over 200 days between now and the general election. That added time lets him talk about a reduction in crime, lets him talk about everything he's done in the city for the people to feel safe, anything he can do economically in the city, anything he can do for housing and where people feel it today. If you recall when he won 4 years ago, at the beginning of the election, it was all about Andrew Yang. And Andrew Yang was running all about COVID. We came out of COVID, and then it became crime, and he was the messenger on crime throughout.
And Obi, he gets to raise money. He gets an opportunity to ask for money for the next 200 days.
But wait a second. Does this mean that he's no longer a lame duck? And does he have an opportunity actually to win as running as an independent against a Democrat and a Republican?
He has a chance to win with less than 50% of the vote. You have the Republican nominee, probably Curtis Sliwa, unless something else changed along the way for what's going on. You have a Democratic nominee. You have a working families nominee that might be different than the Democrat. You have a situation where you could have progressive and Eric Adams and Curtis Sliwa, or a progressive Andrew Cuomo and the others.
And another independent, because Jim Walden is going to run.
The uniqueness here is, don't forget, an independent in New York does nothing as a candidate for the first time. Jim may be a great guy and so forth, but where they are on the ballot and no one knows who they are and where they are, you're talking about an incumbent mayor is a very different independent.
But does that mean that he can't win as Eric Adams can't win as an independent?
I think it's very hard for him to win, even as an incumbent. And the reason for that is the last time we saw this was with Mayor Bloomberg. Mayor Bloomberg left the GOP, ran as an independent, if you recall, but he knew that he could not win without a Republican line. So he went out there and got 3 out of the 5 Republican county committees to support him in what we call the Wilson-Pakula law and allow for him to run as an independent with a major party line is the only way he was able to do it with $150 million. So it becomes a lot more difficult for an independent Mayor Adams to win without
Mayor Lindsay did it before.
That was 50 years ago. It's very different.
I don't disagree with that.
Maybe more than
what you have now is an incumbent as independent. You have a Republican running that's going to get about historically 300,000 votes. Eric Adams had 750,000 votes last time in the general. So the Democratic nominee starts off with that number, generally speaking.
It's apples and oranges.
I don't think you can say that. I don't think you say that he starts out with what he had before.
No, I didn't say it.
People have left his tent.
No, the Democratic nominee starts out with that historically.
Oh, okay.
And a chunk of them were his before. He had 289,000 of those voters for the ranked choice voting on the first ballot. So let's
do you think he gets those
apples and oranges? It's apples and oranges. No, it's apples and oranges. And the reason it's apples and oranges, Obi, is that you know and I know and you know that Adams and Cuomo share voters. So those voters are going to stick with Cuomo in November. How do you win as an independent without a major party line?
Time. You're saying that Andrew Cuomo is going to definitely win the Democratic primary?
Look, are you not looking at these polls? These polls are crazy, Marcia. And to mention that now you have Mayor Adams who said, I'm no longer in it. Where do those Democrats go but to Cuomo? I think the next poll that you're going to tell us about is going to show him at around 45% going into June.
Well, we had said this on air before. One of the problems he has, though, is ranked choice voting. He does not move his numbers from first ballot until the 5th ballot on the ranked choice voting polls that are out right now. So the path to victory for Adams is this. He starts off with whatever his base is going to be, and there are people out there that are still with him. Let's say that instead of 289, it's a couple 100,000. He then tips it. He then cuts into the Democratic turnout to get it in there and brings that number down to about 550. Okay, so he's at 4. Democrat at 150,000 more. The Republican holds at 3. He pulled some of the Republicans. Now the issue is turnout. The turnout in the city.
He doesn't agree with
no, it's the calculus. I hear you, but it's too much.
No,
if this, you're going to lose people. People are not following. This is crazy.
You're going to gain. There will be more voters in November than there have been for the past.
We have a city, Marcia. We have a city. When I was president of the Board of Elections, I saw consistently 17% to 20% turnout. You're talking about turnout that's going to be around 23, 25%. You're not going to have those numbers. The truth is this. You're going to have 4 people running. Can the mayor win? Is going to, can I get abs by November? I'm sure it's possible, but it's not likely.
You're just jealous of my abs.
Yeah,
Come on.
it's not likely.
Wait. Let me ask you a question. So there's this campaign by the progressives called Dream. Do not rank evil Andrew for mayor. What role will Dream, do not rank evil Andrew for mayor, play in whether who's going to get what in terms of...
We see this already. We see this already.
So does that mean he's not going to be the nominee?
The Working Families Party...
the whole time.
Monopoly's
a game.
The Working Families Party has already gone that route and endorsed 4 candidates or 5 candidates instead of 3. But it was 3. Originally it was 3, and they upped it.
But they're not going to tell you how to rank them until near the end.
And that puts Cuomo down in number 5. The question is, can all the progressive voters coalesce around one person before Cuomo gets 50%?
It's not going to happen. And the reason...
Do you think so?
The reason...
As of today, yes, he's right. But in the next 80 days...
Wait. You should bask in this.
I love that. Thank you so much, Obi.
But in 80 days...
Say it again. You were right.
First time ever.
And 80 days out last time, we had Mayor Yang. How'd that work out?
No, but that's different. It's a whole different calculus. But let's not compare apples and oranges. But this is what's interesting. The progressives had a chance to unite behind one candidate and make that person the anti-Cuomo candidate. Could have been someone like Jumaane Williams. But to endorse 4 people, look, President Nixon said it. When you launch a campaign to defeat X, always bet on X. There's no way that you're going to defeat Andrew Cuomo in this primary, coalescing 4 people talking about, we're not going to tell you who we're going to endorse until the last minute.
Let me ask you this question. I know you want to talk. Let me ask you a question. So the number 2 in the polls is Zoran Mamdani, who's also being endorsed by the Working Families Party. And if he doesn't win in the ranked choice voting in the Democratic primary, they're holding out the possibility that they could back yet another person, a 4th person in the race, could be Zoran Mamdani,
of course.
Whoever comes in second.
Sure.
So if that happens, what does that do to the race?
Well, it throws the race even a little further, makes it a lot more likely for Andrew Cuomo to still win, but with Mayor Adams doing well. Mayor Adams will do well with the Mamdani on the Working Families Party line. I'll tell you the calculus that's going to throw your viewers out. Imagine a phone call from President Trump to the Republicans in New York City saying, I want you to support Eric Adams for mayor. Could you imagine?
That could be the kiss of death.
That could be the kiss of death for who? He's not ready. He's already not in the Democratic primary. The kiss of death for Eric Adams happened when President Trump said, I'll dismiss those charges without prejudice. That was a kiss of death. Him calling, telling the Republicans to support him. Now Mayor Adams runs as an independent with the Republican line. That's a better shot than the calculus you were presenting a little earlier.
He doesn't have the Republican line.
I know he doesn't.
I don't believe he'll have the Republican line.
Me neither.
I don't believe.
Would he want the Republican line?
I don't think it's an issue today because Curtis Sliwa would have to give it up, and you don't see Curtis giving in to anybody.
Has he submitted petitions today?
Yeah. It's Curtis. By the way, he'd have to submit petitions and decline the nomination to do it.
I'm giving you a calculus. You gave all these calculus. I give you one calculus, and it's like, wow.
No. The point we can both agree on, for Eric Adams to win, the turnout in the general election in November has to approach 25%, 23 to 25%.
And how likely is that?
It hasn't been done, and that's the beauty of this. We have more social media, we have more TV, we have matching funds 8-to-1.
You're saying that they're going to have a bigger turnout in this mayoral election in the history of the city?
Going back decades that I've been around, it hasn't been 25%.
Many decades.
Yes, thank you, my friend. Thank you. But what I'm going with this is that turnout. You have excitement. You have Working Families on the left. You have Andrew Cuomo. You have Eric Adams. You have Curtis Sliwa. You have all this stuff. Marcia, I want the popcorn concession. I want to sit there and sell tickets to watch this event.
It's going to be good for TV, but the truth is this. The polls keep showing Andrew Cuomo running away with this thing. You know that. You know that the next poll is going to show all of those Eric Adams Democrats are going to come to Cuomo, and he's going to consolidate all of the press, all of the endorsements. Everything is happening in his favor. It's about addition, Marcia. And Andrew Cuomo has been doing nothing but adding to his campaign. And I don't see how he loses.
You will have so much news to come. You could do this show nightly and have us on the couch every night during this mayor's race. You don't have that historically. You would have 4 credible candidates running for mayor. Historically, that's never happened in New York in a November election. It'd be fantastic.
What do you think about that?
I think that'll be
15 seconds.
I think it'll be an exciting race for New York City. But one thing I really would love to see, I would love to see New York City voters come out in droves. Voter turnout has to improve, and if this is what's going to make it happen, great.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there for now, but our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. So we're back with J.C. Polanco and O'Brien Murray, and during the break we've been discussing whether Eric Adams actually could have a chance to get reelected.
I think
you are the amazing optimist who says, right on, bro, you're going to have a chance.
I'm not just the optimist. I'm also looking at the numbers. I'm saying what the path is, because it's not easy. It is a narrow thread at this point, a narrow needle to thread.
But what role does incumbency play? I mean, you know, he can, anytime he wants to, he can have a press conference, he can give out things, he can go to communities and talk to them, he can do whatever he wants, and the press will follow him.
It means a tremendous amount, and the press covers him. If you look at Cuomo, one of the issues that Cuomo's having is he's not engaging the press. And I've said on this couch before, what he should have done is met with the press before and found a way to feed their appetite and build the relationships, because they're coming after him.
He doesn't want to.
No, well, he's not. And that's the plan, and you can't argue with the campaign in the middle of it.
But the question is, why is it the plan? Is it the plan because he doesn't want to have the people who want to go after him, so he doesn't tell you where he's going to be, because he doesn't want his detractors to show up and demonstrate against him?
Marcia, whatever the plan is, it's working. Have you not seen the poll numbers? This man is crushing the competition. And guess what? When he does show up, guess what he's getting? Powerful Congressman Meeks from the Queens County Democratic Organization supporting him. In Brooklyn, the entire party supporting him. Everywhere this man goes, I see hundreds of people showing up endorsing him. So whatever it is that you don't like, and we may not like, it's working, so he's going to continue doing it.
I got to ask you a question, though. Every single time that Andrew Cuomo does anything, Brad Lander immediately, within 15 minutes, has a press conference to say, breaking news, Andrew Cuomo, fill in the blank, did something terrible.
I mean, I would do it too if I were Brad Lander.
Is that working, or is that something where after a while you just go, oh my God, another one?
According to the polls, no. Brad who is what's becoming the question.
But you know what's crazy?
After June, Brad Lander will be gone.
You know what's crazy? He's a sitting New York City controller. And he's given up the position to run for re-election, to go for mayor, and he sees these poll numbers as well. So I would be there in 5 minutes. Everything Cuomo says, I'll try to do my best to try to get press.
Do you think he thought that he had a path?
I thought he had a path because, quite frankly, if you're the chief financial officer of the New York City government, you view yourself as a citywide official.
How'd that work for Scott Stringer last time?
No, I know, but that was different. There was a last-minute curveball on some sexual harassment claim that came at the last minute, and everyone left him stranded.
And how'd that work for John Liu?
Well, that's also different because of the Campaign Finance Board allegations, if you recall.
Right.
That he got caught up in that scandal. He had nothing to do with it, and then he loses out on campaign
matching funds. And Anthony Weiner fell out, and we got Mayor de Blasio.
But there's always other reasons why. But this situation here, Brad Lander doesn't have any of those scandals, and quite frankly,
he has an issue about being anti-Semitic or not, and he's Jewish. And he has a press conference, and it's amazing he defends Chuck Schumer, but yet the polls now show AOC beating Chuck Schumer, and AOC is the progressive. He's trying to line himself with Chuck Schumer the day the AOC poll comes out. That was a mistake for Brad Lander this week.
Let's change topics. I'm wondering, when the mayor had his press conference after the court suit was finally thrown out, he held up a book by the current director of the FBI, a Trump appointee, Kash Patel, called Government Gangsters, and recommended that everybody in New York read it. Did that help or hurt him in terms of how people view him in the public and his campaign for mayor?
The way he held the book up, you didn't know who the author was. Everyone who watched this show now knows that it was Kash Patel who was the author. The other world of the average New Yorkers doesn't connect it. That's a great news story. It's great to talk about, but it's not going to move the voters one way or the other. And it's not a news.
Was it a negative? Was it a negative because he was pushing something that was written by a Trump supporter?
It's more of the same because he's already been tagged with Trump already. That doesn't add to the up or down of Trump.
I think Eric Adams is playing chess. I continue to believe that Eric Adams sees a path for himself in November, but depends a great deal on Republican voters. I'm seeing it on social media. There are a lot of Republicans that are supporting Eric Adams. Right. And it's very interesting to see, and I think he's making a push to see if he can get those votes. Now, let me tell you, a lot of people may not know this, but I was on another network, and they were talking about Kash Patel. So a lot of people are talking about it. Now, let me tell you something that's interesting. That plays very well in the MAGA world, because now you have a mayor who's promoting one of the books, who's being very nice to Eric Adams.
Some people think that helps him.
It helps him a great deal with getting Republican voters and having MAGA support you in the background.
His path to victory is the Democratic base that he has, whatever that might be, the Republicans he can pull away from a Curtis Lee that already turned out, Republicans that wouldn't turn out normally and get them to show up, and the independents that don't normally vote. This is what we're saying about what he has to get out to win this election. A higher turnout, Republicans, independents, and Democrats supporting him as an independent.
But if there was a higher turnout, it could also be because Zohran Mamdani has a really large base of younger voters, anti-Israel voters, pro-Palestinian voters, who think he's wonderful, and he's masterful at using social media.
No one's better than him.
And that could increase the turnout, but not in a way that helps Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams.
I don't think that increases turnout. I think that would then pull votes away from Cuomo because that Democratic
base don't usually vote.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Marcia. You know, I'm seeing a lot of excitement behind the Mamdani campaign. A lot of young people are supporting him, and he's a 33-year-old assemblyman. Think about it. You go from representing a district in
Queens,
he thinks
out of the box
of 125,000 people, but the out of the box is where it's going to get interesting.
And he raised a lot of money from
He has, and he's asking people not to send him any more money. I've never seen that before.
Because he's maxed out.
He's
maxed out. I've never seen that. But let me tell you something interesting. I think that Andrew Cuomo and I think that Mayor Adams is going to make a point to study and focus on the charter of the Democratic Socialists of America and tie Mamdani to the charter. Look, I know I'm going to get beat up on social media. I have been for the last couple of days because I'm asking people, go take a look at what Democratic Socialists of Americans believe in. Look at their position on Israel. Look at their position on private property. Look at their position on finance and real estate. And a lot of New Yorkers don't agree with the stuff that's being pushed by DSA. But he has a great smile. He's exciting. But behind all of that, there's a really interesting
There's also
charter.
a generational issue here. You know, there are people who are tired of the same old politicians day after day, the same old faces. And Zohar Mamdani is fresh, he's bright, he has new ideas, and he's generating excitement in the campaign.
But you say new ideas,
I mean, you know, think about this. He ate a burrito on the subway and got like thousands of people on social media.
Yeah, sure it is. But social media is fantastic for a base. We've seen before, winning a Twitter war or now X war does not win the election. What you have to do is turn out your base and figure out how to grow it. You have to accumulate the voters. And I don't think what he's doing is going to add to the voters he's talking about. I think you're talking about 750,000 voters that vote Democrat, that have done it for the Democratic line historically. He will eat into that number for Cuomo. And you're talking about a negligible number of people that aren't in that universe that vote already in the Democratic Party that are going to show up.
But Marcia, to your point, Marcia, I think you make a very good point. I do think that he is exciting voters that are not part of the demographic of voters that come out in large propensity.
And they're not part of what people are actually being able to poll about.
Right.
They haven't voted before.
And they're on cell phones. They're not going to be the people that are going to pick up phones. So look, I think you're onto something. I think that Mamdani is going to make an impact if he's on the working families line. But I think that people are going to look at those poll numbers and see what will happen if Mamdani stays in the race and pulls votes away from Cuomo. You could, in essence, have an Eric Adams, and there may be a bigger scare of having someone tied to Trump.
Maybe that's Eric Adams.
It is, but it may be a reason why Democrats are going to coalesce behind Andrew Cuomo to defeat Eric Adams.
You're also talking about, at that situation, two Democrats, 3 Democrats with Eric Adams being independent and Democrat, and a Republican fully funded with matching funds in a competitive November election. What he'll be able to do, he's not asking for money right now, Mamdani, but what he's going to do is raise money for the general and get the matching funds and get his $7 million again to spend. That will make him a credible candidate on that line. But will it move the needle for the votes? The polling is going to be magnificent.
Who does he hurt?
He hurts Andrew Cuomo without a doubt because Andrew Cuomo is Andrew Cuomo is a Democrat. Andrew Cuomo has a lot of Democratic and independent voters that are going to support him. But one thing about Andrew Cuomo, he's going to have an unlimited amount of money in November, so he's going to be able to do very well this November election. I continue to think.
But what about all the people who are going to try to hurt him? The women who say
it's baked in, Marcia.
What?
Marcia, it's baked in. Let me explain something to you. The movement has changed. There was a time when the
What about the nursing home family?
You know what he's done? His responses. I followed the guidelines for the federal government. You supported it when I put it out. I can't believe that you're trying to attack me on it now because he didn't do anything outside of what the federal government prescribed, and that's his defense. And it hurts me to know that people died because of his decision. But that's his defense.
But there's also the fact that there's the Trump factor, where yesterday Trump actually said, I work well with the guy. That's another kiss of death here in New York.
Very different than saying I endorse the guy, right?
You don't think that was done intentionally?
Of course it was.
That was, exactly. He knew what he was doing.
But it was done, I think, it was done to hurt Eric Adams, to help Eric Adams and to hurt Andrew Cuomo, because he wanted to maybe level the playing field and say, yeah, I've done this favor for Eric Adams, but I worked well with Andrew Cuomo. It deals with the Trump issue.
Yeah. To your point, though, all these issues, The world is different than it was because of Trump and what people believe, and there's a baked-in number. The thing that I'm amazed at is the amount of press that's negative on Andrew Cuomo instead of supporting. The New York Post and where they are. There's not an outlet out there that is pro-Andrew Cuomo, that is looking to endorse him, push him, give a positive message, and that's one of the reasons.
But why is that?
But I don't know, and I think it's partly because he's been so antagonistic to the press when he was in Albany, and he didn't remember, hey, I've pissed them off so much, I've gone after them so much, I need to find out how to embrace them and work with them.
I don't think, can I tell you, whatever it is that he's doing to upset some people in the press, it's working. And I know you don't want to hear this, Marcia, but I'm looking at the endorsements, and it's endorsement after endorsement. Once I saw Congressman Meeks.
And he's been very careful in how he's rolled them out.
Oh, my goodness. It's incredible. It's textbook perfect. And you know what? New Yorkers may want to see someone who's not so friendly to the press. They may want to see someone who's tough. And he's coming out as tough, and he's exuding confidence, and more importantly, he's exuding experience, and people are feeling comfortable with his candidacy. And I know that some in the press don't like it, but it's working.
But what I'm saying is, this is a missed opportunity. He is hitting a ceiling and has to find out how to get to 50% before the later rounds.
What's
happening is...
What's ceiling? Eric Adams just said, I'm not running in the Democratic primary.
That's correct. And
Eric Adams, where those votes go?
Don't you think that gives him a boost right off the bat?
Of course. Where do you think those votes go? You know.
I think on day one, yes. But I'm saying that over time, what he has proven is his numbers are not going up. And with Adams coming out, they may go up a little bit. But Eric Adams' numbers are not going to him all the way. But we have also found repeatedly in all the polls that have been out so far, ranked choice voting does not benefit Eric Adams until the 5th round. Right. That, to me, is a major sign that all the people that are in the lower numbers are hurting him because they're going to the other progressives in the race. That's the problem. Yeah, if he starts getting to the 5th and 6th round and is having troubles where he is right now, if that doesn't change, that's what I'm saying. The progressives will pick it up and unify against him.
You know what we haven't spoken about? The number 2 vote that's getting all the poll numbers showing that he gets most of the number 2 votes, Scott Stringer. Scott Stringer is going to get a lot of votes from people that are going to go in and vote Andrew Cuomo. Scott Stringer. A lot of folks are going to go Brad Lander. Scott Stringer. Scott Stringer is going to get a lot of number 2 votes and make it interesting in the Democratic primary.
And the time we have left, I want to change the topic. I want to talk about Donald Trump, tariffs, and whether or not this ultimately helps the Democrats in the midterm elections.
As of today, it helps them unequivocally. But the bigger picture is what we've talked about before. In your viewers, they all look here today. Every day they drive down the road. What's the price of gas? What is that going to do? They put the gas in their cans.
So everything is going to go up now.
Well, that's the question. Will it go up for how long and how much?
And what about your 401ks?
Well, but go back. But the basket of goods. Everyone buys their groceries every week. They know what $200 get them. They know how full the basket is for $200. That's going to be the question. How long that changes everybody day to day. The 401k, as many investors will tell you and advisors, don't read it. Get the quarterly report. Put it aside, the monthly report, put it aside. Do not watch it every day, watch it over a period of time. But that is going to be something that can hurt him if it continues.
But we're not talking about tomorrow. We're talking about, does it affect the midterm elections, not this November, but the following November?
It does.
Is there a bleed out?
You know why? The reason it hurts Republicans in the midterms, is because this is going to be day after day after day in the news showing the economy tanking. We lost all the gains since January 20th. You're looking at the Wall Street, you're looking at the stock numbers, everything's just depleting. People are looking at the 401k, people are feeling this, and it's just bad press all around. And you sit there and you hear that every economist disagrees with you. Everyone who knows about money says this is a tax on you. The people that are selling you the goods say this is going to cost you more, and we have to just put all our trust on Donald Trump. Eventually, New Yorkers and people across the country saying, what are we doing? Look at the results. Look at the results this week. Look at the margin of victory for the Republicans in Florida. It shrunk by almost 60% in some of these places. Keep that in mind.
What matters, though, is what people's paycheck is. Do they have a job and how far it goes? That's going to be the test more than the 401k, because the 401k will continue to go up and down throughout the year. Will people continue to have jobs? Will they make as much or more money? And how far will that money go? That's the ultimate economic test for everybody.
The real question there is how far will that money go? And that what you're saying, JC, I think, is that the money isn't going to go that far.
It's not going to go that far, but it's not just the tariffs. It's all the layoffs that tens of thousands of people losing their jobs. You see them on TV. They're being interviewed. People are suffering, and people won't forget this in the midterm elections, and they're going to send the message. So things better turn around very quickly, or if not, those Republicans Republicans representing purple districts are going to be in trouble.
But it depends. You're talking about who's losing their jobs. Government employees losing their jobs. Fantastic.
Those are people.
Wait, fantastic men and women. They're fantastic. But the average voter does not worry about the government shrinking until it impacts them personally. The fact that there are people losing their jobs that work in different departments that are in Washington, that is not a connection to the vote.
But they're around the country. People are suffering around West Virginia is losing thousands of federal workers. But New York is losing federal workers. It's not just Washington.
But that's when people feel it themselves and see it themselves. That's what gets. What's on TV is not the issue. It's what they feel and see every day on their own is what's going to move the votes. Because one of the things is, don't forget, no matter who's been in power, whether it's been Republican or Democrat in the White House or controlling the House and the Senate, they have not done what they should be doing in government reforms. They've talked about it. They've never gotten it done. So when they're going through whatever pain they're going through today, that's a question that's going to be going on throughout. There is economic theory about government supply that people can talk about, but it doesn't matter.
Let's let JC talk.
You know, the truth is that the way in which these cuts have happened, the chainsaw, the Elon Musk on stage showing off about how he's hurting these people. We're talking about people who are losing their homes, people who are losing their health policy, their health insurance policy. And I think people are going to remember that in the midterm. Republicans in purple districts are going to pay the price. There's nothing you're going to tell me otherwise. And quite frankly, I think these tariffs are going to hurt people in the long run, right about the time that people go to vote in the midterm. It's going to hurt Republicans.
Only time will tell about the impact going forward. The short-term stuff is today. That's the best thing the White House has going for itself. How quickly it can right the ship, put it in the right direction, and get people on that ship to a path of progress and prosperity. Because right now, this country, historically, if the answer was that's the way it's always been done, that's not the right answer. There had to be changes.
But the problem is this, that right now, all these countries that are going to have these big tariffs are countries that American companies and other companies use to produce their products. When the price of those products goes up, and we're not just talking sneakers here, people are going to feel it. They're going to feel it in the increased cost in the supermarket. They're going to find increased costs when they want to buy consumer goods. And as their money buys less, that is going to redound against the president.
It absolutely will. The question is how long and how deep it goes. Because
but
if
there's another question. How long does it take, if you believe President Trump's theory, how long does it take for American companies to suddenly decide to produce things here, which if they do and they have to be paid minimum wage, is going to increase the price as well?
It's a bad theory. It's a bad policy. Look, we are acting as if Donald Trump has a PhD in economics and has won the Nobel Prize in economics. This is a celebrity who comes up with this idea from the 80s and wants to implement it now. And unless you say, yes, sir, you're going to lose your primary. So, yes, sir, you see all these Republican senators. Yes, sir. And it's crazy to me. People are putting all their faith in a dude who's just throwing away 1980s policies. This is going to hurt people. We know that you can't bring those jobs back. We've modernized our economy. This is going to be difficult for Americans.
Remember,
it's a dumb policy.
The purpose he talks about doing this. And yes, if they stuck today and they went through and they decimated the economy, absolutely it's on him. He's using this as a negotiation ploy.
It's not a joke, though. What is this ploy stuff?
There is a ton of economists out there telling leaders from across the world, call the president, cut your deal, get the tariffs taken care of, figure out what you can do as a country to take care of the trade deficits.
But the bottom line, wait a minute, here's the question. The bottom line question is this. His baseline for this, well, you say it's to cut a deal. What he's telling the American people is, I'm bringing jobs back. I'm going to have companies decide to manufacture things not in Canada, not in Vietnam, not in Mexico, right here in the United States. Car parts should be made here. And he's bragging about how he's got, today he put out a press release about a couple of companies that are going to have double shifts so they can do more in the United States. But that's a drop in the bucket. And the question is, when you're producing more things here in this country, and you have to pay the minimum wage that you don't have to pay when you go out of the country, what does that do to prices? That's my question to you.
But it's the other part of this is that if the tariffs are reduced on goods that we're exporting and we can produce more of them here and export them for a positive price, then you're having more jobs producing the same goods here that are already being done.
But what about
that's a part of it.
We have to talk about consumer prices in the United States.
But listen, this is important. The formula, if you go and check out the formula that the president used to determine the numbers that he's going to have percentages by for these tariffs, the formula is absolutely insane. You hear economists tell you that's the wrong formula. So you take a country like Cambodia. Cambodia is a poor country. When you take a look at the numbers, of course they're going to have more exports than they're going to have imports. They can't afford anything, so they have to make to sell. So what the president does is that he saw how much they're exporting, and then he did a formula there. If you take a look, he divided that by the amount of money, the amount of things that we're exporting to Cambodia, and then said, I'm going to divide that by 2, and that's going to be the tariff to Cambodia. So guess what's going to happen? You are hurting poor countries around the world as well, destabilizing those economies even further. So this is not just about the United States. This is about destroying the economies of countries around the world, destabilizing them. And guess what's going to come in to say, I can help you stabilize? China. China's going to say, I'll take care of you. Can you believe those Americans, what they did to you, Cambodia? I'm your friend. And you're going to see China go in places that the United States has hurt. No need for this.
How do we have
bad business?
How do we have more better paying jobs in the United States is the goal.
Yeah,
That's the
we
goal.
modernize as an economy, but we don't manufacture here because of what Marcia was saying. When you pay minimum wage for something, that's a lot of money for these people to make sneakers on minimum wage. So the sneakers are going to be more expensive when you sell them in the U.S. Your phones are going to be more expensive if you have to pay Americans minimum wage.
We used to produce automobiles here.
We used to.
And we started doing it again. BMW in South Carolina, Tesla across the country, they're starting to do it. There are ways
Canadian
to do
parts,
it.
Obi. And we're putting tariffs on those parts.
There are ways to do it, and there are ways not to do it. The way in the past it was being done was not working. It did not have a long-term viability for this country. This country was taking on too much debt every year. The deficit is the yearly, the debt is the long-term. That had to be stopped. The question is, who's going to stop it and how? Yes, it's painful today. We hope it doesn't continue for a longer term, because that's Marcia's question. Will it impact the Republican votes in the midterm? Today it will. If the ship is righted in the right direction, picks up speed, more jobs, better paying jobs, better economy, then they'll be doing victory laps. But we don't know. Only time will tell.
No, it just hurts me to know that there are people living paycheck to paycheck, people approaching bankruptcy, and then you have these billionaires, literally, guys, billionaires, telling you it'll be a little pain, just for a little bit, just bear with it while I do this shenanigans. And these people are hurting while they're sitting there in their golden toilets. And it hurts me to hear that people are saying, let them suffer for a little bit, it may get better later. It's not fair, it's not okay for people.
It's like surgery.
It hurts me a great deal.
The difference between minor surgery and major surgery, right? It's minor if it's on somebody else. If it's your wallet, it's a major issue.
It's a bad
and
look.
Therefore, the men and women deserve to know what's going on in their lives and where the paycheck's coming from, how much it's going to be. I agree 100%. I'm not.
Obi, you have billionaires making these decisions on the back of people living paycheck to paycheck. Obi, this is a problem. And when you take a look, when I say billionaires, all of them are billionaires. Treasury, Commerce, the president, the president's advisors. All of these people are billionaires. This is a big disconnect, man. And it's a problem for everyday folks.
But also don't forget the politicians that were in these office before were not doing their job. The politicians that have been here for decades, Chuck Schumer, who is now being pushed by AOC, they need to go out in the world and work and know what it's like. And they didn't do it. They sat in office, they got reelected, they got fat and happy, and they got rich.
I don't know what Chuck Schumer has to do with this.
They need to also be looked at the same point, and we have new people in changing things. I don't care which party it is, it had to be done. Bottom line.
You want to answer that?
Again, it's just a little heartless. Not that you're heartless, not that you are heartless, but it's very heartless to tell people that are suffering that, well, you know, it'll be a little short-term pain, and they're living paycheck to paycheck by billionaires telling them that. It's crazy to me.
I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this again, but right now, I'm going to thank you both for being here. I'm going to thank you at home for joining us as well.